ನಿಮ್ ಜೊತೆ ಕಡೆ ನಂದ ಕಾಟ
Good afternoon to all of you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Very good.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So yesterday we were discussing IP security, right? We discussed many points. Some noise is coming. I request them to mute. Okay. Thank you.
चल रहे
Hello. So there is one. You are able to see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So we have discussed many points with respect to the IP security. So as a overview, just I will go through the information given in the Geeks for Gigs. The same thing also be followed by you for the examination. So we have seen that IP security provides confidentiality, authentication, and integrity. So these three are important in order to provide the security. So IP security protocol is optional in case of IPv4 and it is compulsory, mandatory in IPv6. If we see IP security, there are two protocols to secure the traffic or data flow. These protocols are ESP, encapsulation security payload, and authentication header. IP security architecture includes protocols, several algorithms, and DOI, domain of interpretation, and key management, because key management is also very, very important because we have to manage the keys which are confidential. Public key cryptography uses the same key for both encryption and decryption, whereas the symmetric key uses the same key for encryption and decryption, or public key uses different key for encryption and decryption. Also, we have seen how we can use the Diffie-Hellman algorithm for the key exchange, all these things. So using some protocols, the key management happens. So IP security architecture is very, very important. You can note down this. IP security architecture is a guaranteed question for your third internal test as well as for your main examination. So we divide the architecture into mainly two protocols, ESP protocol and AH protocol. Under ESP protocol, you are having encryption algorithm. Under AH protocol, you are having authentication algorithm, followed by that domain of interpretation and then key management. So we write like this: architecture of IP security covers the general concepts, definitions, protocols, algorithm, and security requirements of IP security technology. ESP protocol provides confidentiality service, and this is the header format that you have to write. So in this, you are having security parameter index, sequence number, payload data, padding length, next header, and authentication header. So this part is called encrypted format. Security parameter index, SPI, is used in security association, where security association is a flow established between the client and server. And we use the sequence number. So we at the TCP protocol also we have used the sequence number basically to have the order delivery. Unique sequence numbers are allotted to every packet so that at the receiver side packets can be arranged properly. We have discussed this. Payload means actual data that you are delivering and which is encrypted format to achieve the confidentiality. Padding. So padding is extra bits or space added to the original message in order to ensure confidentiality. Padding length is size of the added bits or space in the original message. Next header means the next payload or next actual data. Authentication data, this field is optional in ESP protocol packet format. Coming to the encryption algorithm is the document that describes various encryption algorithms used for encapsulation security payload. You can choose various encryption algorithms such as DES, 3DES, AES, or RSA, or elliptical cryptography. Different encryption algorithms are available. You can choose any one of them. AH protocol, that is authentication header protocol, provides both authentication and integrity service. We have seen what is authentication in the beginning of the classes as well as during the introduction of the security chapter. Authentication is ensuring that we are talking to a right person or right machine. And integrity is there is no changes during the transit, okay, or at some point of time of storing the data. So whatever is sent, the same thing should be received at the receiving end. Authentication header is implemented one way only, authentication along with integrity. So this is how we can write next header, payload length, reserved security parameter index, sequence number, authentication data. So you can just leave these things. You can concentrate only on authentication header, which covers the packet format and general issues related to the use of authentication header for packet authentication and integrity. Authentication algorithm contains the set of documents that describe authentication algorithm used for AH and for the authentication option of ESP. Domain of interpretation, in short, called DOI, is the identifier which supports both AH and ESP protocol. It contains values needed for documentation related to each other. Key management contains the document that describes how keys are exchanged between the sender and receiver. I think with this, we can go to the next topic in the chapter 8. This is an overview of IP security, whatever we discussed yesterday. You can note down one more question, IEEE 802.11i. So write a short note on wireless security. So IEEE 802.3 we have seen, discussed, CSMACD we discussed, and what is the Ethernet format we have discussed, the preamble, so many things, right? So I have written on the board the format of the Ethernet format and I explained various fields. Now we are looking at wireless security IEEE 802.11i. So question is, write a short note on wireless security. So for 4 to 5 marks, you can expect this question. So here you have a diagram to write. So a wireless device like a laptop which gets connected to the wireless access point, and this is the wireless connection to authenticate. The extensible authentication protocol EAP is used, and this is a insecure internet. From that insecure internet, through this insecure internet, authentication server authenticates this wireless through a wireless access point, this particular wireless device. So this information you have to write, and you can write the explanation like this. IEEE 802.11i standard provides authentication, message integrity, and confidentiality to 802.11, that is Wi-Fi at the link layer. Wireless Wi-Fi protected access to is often used as a synonym for 802.11i, although it is technically a trademark of the Wi-Fi Alliance that certifies product compliance with 802.11i. And 802.11i authentication supports two modes. In either mode, the end result of the successful authentication is a shared pairwise master key, a personal mode, and a wireless device with access point mode. So this information you have to write in the examination, go through the PPTs that I am going to share after the class. Next topic is firewalls. In the beginning of the classes, we discussed what is a firewall. We wrote the firewall when we wrote the general architecture of the internet connection. A firewall is a system that typically sits at some point of connectivity between a site it protects and the rest of the network. So external network or public network and your system, in between you can find the firewall. It is usually implemented as an appliance or part of a router, although a personal firewall may be implemented on end user machines. Firewall based security depends on the firewall being only connectivity to the sites from outside. There should be no way to bypass the firewall via other gateways or wireless connections or dial-up connections. In effect, a firewall divides a network into a more trusted zone internal to the firewall and a less trusted zone external to the firewall. Less trusted or insecure is the public network. Okay. This is useful if you do not want the external user to access a particular host or service within your site. Firewalls may be used to create multiple zones of trust within your own home network, such as a hierarchy of increasingly trusted zones. A common arrangement involves three zones of trust: the internal network, the DMZ, demilitarized zone, and the rest of the internet. Firewalls filters based on IP, TCP, and UDP information, among other things. That means it can filter IP packets, TCP packets, or UDP packets. It can identify and it can do the actions. They are configured with a table of addresses that characterize packet they will and they will not forward. So certain packets they may not forward, certain packets they may forward, depending upon the policy using which you configure the firewall. By addresses, we mean more than just the destination IP address, although there is one possibility. Generally, each entry in the table is a 4-tuple. It gives the IP address, TCP or UDP, port number for both the source and destination. So firewall like this. So what is a firewall? Write the high level architecture of the firewall and explain the characteristics of the firewall. So this is the high level architecture we can write. You can see here this is a firewall. Symbolically it is represented like a file. Actually there won't exist a wall with a file. So but this is a conceptual idea which brings the security, and this company site need to be a secured one, and this is the internet, and people when they want to access remotely the company internet, so this firewall filters. So a firewall filters packets flowing between a site and rest of the internet. So these are the some of the information in chapter 8. In the chapter 8 we have discussed the privacy and security issues in the network. We have discussed different authentication protocols. We have discussed different key distribution protocols. We have discussed different cipher techniques, classical and public key. We have discussed some examples of security systems, that is the PGP, pretty good privacy, SSL, secure shell, and IP security. These are the things that we discussed. Let us move to the chapter 9, that is application. This is the last chapter. In this we can one second. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Are you there listening?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
No disconnection, right?
No, sir.
No, sir.
You are able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can you read out what is written in the screen? Anyone?
Traditional applications, multimedia applications, infrastructure services, and overlay networks.
Very good, very good. Say we discussed many of the applications. So that means like email application, World Wide Web, right, and different protocols. But what is the scope of coverage we can understand by looking at this chapter. These are the things that you have to cover for the examination. So quite easy. So you may be asked to discuss the traditional application, that is being we are using the internet for World Wide Web and email. Broadly speaking, both of these applications use request reply paradigm. User sends request to server, which then respond accordingly. So these things we'll be discussing. I request all of you to go through these last two chapters, which are very easy and you can score good marks. It's important to distinguish between application programs and application protocols. Applications program and application protocols. We write file transfer application, which uses FTP, for example. So FTP becomes application protocol. File transfer application is the application program. So one more example is hypertext transfer protocol, which is an application protocol that is used to retrieve web pages from remote servers. And you have seen many application programs like the Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, Safari. All these are the applications. That means we are talking about different browser applications. Two widely used standardized application protocols are SMTP and HTTP. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol and is used to exchange electronic mail. HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is used to communicate between web browsers and web servers. So such informations you have to write. When it comes to the electronic mail, SMTP, MIME, IMAP, all these things are the protocols that we have to use or we have to explain. Email is one of the oldest network applications. To distinguish the user interface from the underlying message transfer protocol such as SMTP or IMAP, and to distinguish between this transfer protocol and a companion protocol that defines the format of the messages being used. Friends, I am going a little bit fast because all these things are already we have discussed. Is it okay? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Because
Yes,
otherwise,
sir.
this last chapter itself is having 96 slides. So even though the exams are approaching, the syllabus will not complete. I'm confident that you can understand this quickly because it is like a revision. So some of the points, all these points we have discussed directly or indirectly, electronic mail and all these things. So I don't think we have to spend much time on this, right? Okay. So come to MIME, multimedia, okay, MIME, right? MIME. Have you heard about MIME protocol?
Yes, sir. It's a multi-purpose mail
Okay.
system protocol.
Very good, right?
So which
So
describes the type of document returning from server, like image, text file, like that, sir.
yes, exactly. So you can basically focus on these points. MIME consists of three basic components. The first component is a collection of header lines that augment the original set defined by RFC 822. The second piece is definition for a set of content types, as you explained. MIME defines two different still image types, denoted image GIF and image JPEG. And third component is a way to encode various data types so that they can be shipped in ASCII format. Okay, so these are the some of the information with respect to the MIME. IMAP, Internet. IMAP stands for what? Can anybody explain what is IMAP? Internet Mail Access Protocol. Hello? Message transfer happens using SMTP. Using MIME, what happens? You will be encoding the data, content, what type of image you want to transfer. All these things are in MIME. IMAP is used for what purpose?
Sir, message.
You want to retrieve the
To
message.
receive the email.
So then you will be using your mail reader uses what protocol? Internet Message Access Protocol. The name itself suggests, right? The final step is for the user to actually retrieve his or her messages from the mailbox, right? So to read them, you have to replay and possibly save a copy for future reference. So these things you are doing, right? So you are using IMAP protocol. And also you are having post office protocol, POP, right? Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So all these protocols you can briefly explain. IMAP is similar to SMTP. IMAP, it is a client server protocol running over TCP. Okay, simple mail transfer protocol. So where the client running on the user desktop machine issues commands in the form of CRLF, terminated ASCII text lines. Okay, so these informations you can write. With respect to the IMAP, you may have to learn this state diagram. Okay, you can go through this state diagram. Connection is established, server is greeting, server is running. Then if authenticated, not authenticated, okay, and if authenticated, then it will be selected and then log out. So this is the state diagram of the IMAP. You can go through this state diagram. You have to learn this state diagram. So if they asked you to discuss the protocols used in electronic mail or discuss electronic mail for 5 to 6 marks means electronic message, email only you should not write. You should write SMTP, MIME, IMAP. MIME 3 components you have to write. IMAP, state diagram you have to write. Next, write a short note on World Wide Web. So this is again easy. World Wide Web has been so successful, and all these stories it is given here. I will not go and explain in detail the World Wide Web. The main thing that you have to explain with respect to the World Wide Web is the core idea of hypertext. Is that one document can link to another document using HTTP protocol and document language, HTML language, hypertext markup language. Okay, these information you can write, and how you can navigate using the different links you can write. Uniform resource locator, URLs. Write a short note on URL and URI, uniform resource locator and identifier. Okay, these things you have to write, and these informations are easy and you can go through them. World Wide Web request messages. So in the World Wide Web request message, you know, the first line of HTTP request message specifies 3 things: operation to be performed, the page, the web page, the operation should be performed on, and the version of the HTTP being used. Although HTTP defines a wide assortment of possible request operation, including write operation that allow a web page to be posted on a server, 2 most common operations are get operation. Get operation in the HTTP fetch the specified web page, and head fetch the state information about the specified web page. So with respect to the World Wide Web, you have to write all these things. You can list these request messages of the World Wide Web. So question you can write down like this. Mention any 5 operations of request messages in World Wide Web. So you can note down the question in that way. Operations, options, get, head, post, put, delete, trace, connect. So options request information about available options. Get, retrieve document identified in the URL. Head, retrieve meta information about a document identified in URL. So post give information to server. So these put store document under specified URL, delete specified URL, trace look back request message, connect for use by proxies. All these things. So you have to remember and you have to explain. Response message. So like request message, you also request response. World Wide Web, we studied that World Wide Web works on request response paradigm. Request messages we have seen. So it uses certain operations and it uses the request message. Like request message, response message begin with a single start line. In this case, line specifies the version of HTTP being used. 3 digital code indicating whether or not the request was successful, and a text string giving the reason for a response. For example, different response, right? So like this, informational, success, redirection, client error, server error. These are the responses. Okay. Uniform resource identifier, URLs that HTTP uses an address are one type of uniform resource identifier, URI. A URI is a character string that identifies a resource, where a resource can be anything that has identity, such as document, an image, or a service. The format of URIs allows various more specialized kind of resource identifiers to be incorporated into the URI space of identifier. The first part of the URI is a scheme that names a particular way of identifying a certain kind of resource, such as mail to for email addresses or file for the file names. Okay, the second part of the URI separated from the first part by a colon, right? So these things you have seen, you are knowing better, right? So these things you can write. The TCP connection, World Wide Web, the original version of the HTTP 1.0 established a separate TCP connection for each data item retrieved from the server. It is not too hard to see how this was very inefficient mechanism. We have seen, right? So whenever we use TCP, TCP is a highly reliable protocol, connection oriented protocol. It needs acknowledgement. We have seen congestion control, many of the overhead the TCP implements. So this becomes an inefficient protocol, especially for the internet. You have written an answer for this. Why TCP, even though it is a reliable protocol, why internet uses UDP? Through that answer, we can understand that TCP is inefficient mechanism. And however, but TCP is required for certain particular applications. To overcome this situation, HTTP version 1.1 introduced persistent connections. The client and server can exchange multiple request response messages over the same TCP connection. So this is the improvement done. What is a persistent connection? What are the advantages? So you may be asked to write. You can note down what is a persistent connection. What are the advantages? So you should say. So TCP version TCP used in HTTP version 1.0 is inefficient. So to as an improvement in HTTP version 1.1, persistent connections are introduced. Persistent connections have many advantages. First, they obviously eliminate the connection setup overhead, thereby reducing the load on the server, the load on the network caused by the additional TCP packets, and delay perceived by the user. So second, because a client can send multiple request messages down a single TCP connection, TCP congestion window mechanism is able to operate more efficiently. So these informations you have to write with respect to the TCP persistent connection. So HTTP 1.0 behavior. So a TCP connection, we have seen TCP, recall all these are whatever we have discussed. TCP uses three-way handshake protocol for connection establishment. So it sends the sync, client sends the sync message, right? Then sync acknowledgement and HTTP get, HTTP response. Once the response is done, finish flag it sends. Again, if you want to make the connection, sync flag, sync acknowledgement, HTTP get, HTTP response, and finish. So this repeats. That is what is shown in this. So World Wide Web TCP connections. HTTP 1.1 behavior is persistent connections. Here you have seen multiple for every connection, new connection has to be established for every data transfer. So instead of that, one single connection, multiple data transfer can be done. That is the behavior of HTTP 1.1. You are having client here, server here, HTTP get, HTTP response. Once the connection is established, HTTP get happens, HTTP response happens. HTTP get happens, HTTP response happens. So this is what we have to understand. HTTP 1.1 behavior is persistent connection behavior. Connection remains permanent for multiple data transfer. Here connection will not become permanent for the multiple data transfer. For every data transfer, connection has to be established. Caching, World Wide Web caching. One of the most active areas of research is caching. In that, internet today is how efficiently cache web pages, because quite frequently we store the web pages. So caching has many benefits. From the client's perspective, a page that can be retrieved from nearby cache can be displayed much more quickly than if it has to be fetched from across the world, from faraway server. From the server's perspective, having a cache intersect and satisfy a request reduces the load on the server. These are the advantages of caching, right? Any two advantages of caching. So you have to write in the perspective of the client. So quickly you can display the web page if it is stored somewhere near to the machine. So instead of getting from the server which is at the far away. And from the server point of view, so having cache intersects and satisfy a request, and it reduces the load on the server. So caching can be implemented in many ways. So write a short note on caching. So 2 points we have written. Its implementation. So a browser can cache recently accessed pages. A browser can cache the pages. Other is a site can support single site wide cache. So this is how we can implement the caching. So another is the internet service providers can cache the pages and provide for the display as and when required. So these are some of the points with respect to the caching. Web services. Much of the motivation for enabling direct application to application communications come from the business world. Historically, interactions between enterprises, businesses, or other organizations have involved some manual steps such as filing out an order form or making a phone call to determine whether some product is in stock. Even within a single enterprise, it is common to have manual steps between software systems that cannot interact directly because they were developed independently. Right? These are the some of the points as a background. Web services. Increasingly, such manual interactions are being replaced with the direct application to application interaction. An ordering application at enterprise. An ordering application at enterprise, A would send a message to an order fulfillment application at enterprise B, which would respond immediately indicating whether the order can be filled. Perhaps if the order cannot be filled by B, the application at A would immediately order from another supplier. So we are talking about supply chain management indirectly here. Many of the items that you want to fetch from the different vendors. So you can do it through the web services. So today we have seen web services for the supply chain management and for many such applications. Architectures are called web services. Architectures, so that is useful for the web services for the applications such as ordering an item from different vendors. Okay, so for that you need to have some architecture for implementing the web services. The term used as informal shorthand to distinguish the two web services architecture are SOAP, S-O-A-P, and REST. Okay, SOAP architecture and REST architecture. So you can note down SOAP and REST architecture are the two main architectures that are used for what purpose? For web services. Okay, what is a SOAP architecture? So SOAP architecture approach to the problem is make it feasible, at least in theory, to generate protocols that are customized to each network application. The key element of approach are a framework for protocol specification, software toolkits for automatically generating a protocol implementation from their specification, and modular partial specifications that can be reused across the protocols. Okay, the REST architecture approach to the problem is is to regard individuals web services as World Wide Web resources identified by URIs, Uniform Resource Identifier, and accessed via HTTP. Essentially, the REST architecture is just the web architecture. The web's strength include stability and demonstrated scalability. What's scalability here? It should be able to work for the large number of applications. Scalability, right? So concentrate on SOAP and REST architecture. So what is SOAP and what is REST expansion? You go through the expansion. So that is one assignment for you. So I don't know how much you are actively listening to the class. So I am giving one question. So write the expansion of SOAP and REST. So let me ask this question in the internal test. This is to check whether you are listening to this class or not. SOAP and REST architecture. Multimedia applications. So in the multimedia applications, we use RTP protocol. So what are the types of multimedia applications? Telephony, video conferencing, all these things. We said application program is different, application protocols are different. For video conferencing, what type of application is required? Real-time transport protocol, which is application layer protocol, which uses TCP also, provides many of the functions that are common to multimedia applications, such as conveying timing information and identifying the coding schemes and media types of an application. RTP is used mainly for reducing the jitter. So you know the jitter, time delay, variation in time delay, all these things we discussed. So real-time streaming protocol is a protocol used for streaming applications, multimedia streaming applications. It is application layer protocol which uses TCP. It is used mainly for reducing the jitter. Deviation from time delay is called jitter. So which that has to be reduced. Otherwise, if you are having a video conferencing or some video playing applications, packet will not come to you when you want to play the packet. Right? So for that purpose, we are using the RTP application that will smoothen. Resource reservation protocol, RSVP. So I have discussed this during the beginning of the classes. Resource reservation protocol. We have seen connection oriented approach and connection less approach. Connection oriented are datagram services. Connection oriented approach. So once a connection is established, means it actually identifies the pair of sender and receiver. Also, it allocates the resources required to run that application all along the path from the sender to the receiver. So to allocate the resources, the protocol used is RSVP. Can be used to request the allocation of resources in the network so that the desired quality of service can be provided to an application. Okay, in addition to these protocols, for multimedia transport and resource allocation, many multimedia applications also need a signaling. So whether it is connection established or not, whether it's synced or not. Okay, so session control protocols are required. For example, suppose that we wanted to be able to make telephone calls across the internet. So then we are using voice over IP. Session control or call control. To do the session control, session description protocol or session initiation protocol H.323 is used. So please note down that how do you implement session control and call control in multimedia applications? One possible question. So using SDP, session description protocol, SIP, session initiation protocol, and H.323. So these protocols were very, very important. In email, you are having SMTP, MIME, and IMAP. In session control and call control, you are having SDP, SIP, and H.323. To understand some of the issues of session control, consider the following problem. What is the problem? Suppose you want to hold a video conference at a certain time and make it available to a wide number of participants. So video conference applications. Perhaps you have decided to encode the video stream using MPEG-2. So moving pictures encoding group or encoding group 2 standard. To use the multicast IP address, multicasting we have seen, multicast IP we have seen, we have discussed. Please recall that. And multicast IP address is this 224.1.1.1 for transmission of the data, and send it using RTP. Okay, RTP over UDP port number 4000. How do you make all that information available to the intended participant is the question. One way would be to put all the information in an email and send it out, but ideally there should be a standard format and protocol for disseminating this sort of information. So we'll see how it is being done. So we use the IETF standard protocols, SDP, session description protocol, session announcement protocol, session initiation protocol, SIP, simple conference control protocol. So you have to write these things. What is session description protocol? You may be asked to write a short note on SDP itself. Right? Session description protocol. Session description protocol is rather a general protocol that can be used in a variety of situations and is typically used in conjunction with one or more other protocols, that is SIP, session initiation protocol. Session description, it gives who is using, how long they are using, what are the IP address they are using, session description. Session initiation protocol, along with that protocol, SDP, is used. It conveys the following information: name and purpose of the session, start and end time of the session, media type used in the session, audio, video that comprise the session, detailed information needed to receive the session, multicast address, transport protocol used, port numbers used, encoding schemes used. All these informations are available in the session description protocol. SIP is another protocol, which is an application layer protocol that bears a certain resemblance to HTTP, but it is used for, especially for multimedia application, which works similar to request response paradigm. It is designed with rather different sorts of applications in mind, thus provide quite different capabilities than HTTP. Okay, that you have to remember. The last protocol in the multimedia application is SIP. The capabilities provided by session initiation protocol can be grouped into 5 categories. Hello?
Yeah, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What are the 3 different multimedia application protocols? Session description protocol, session
SDP,
initiation protocol. What is one more?
SSD.
Huh? H point 323. H point 323. Right? How the SIP works? Session initiation protocol, how it works? SIP. SIP is used for multimedia applications. User location, it wants to know user location, determine the correct device with which to communicate to reach a particular user. User availability, determining if the user is willing to be able to take part in a particular communication session. User capabilities, determining such as item as the choice of media and coding scheme to use. Session setup, then it has to do. That means establish session parameters such as port numbers to be used by the communicating parties. Then session management it will do. That means it will implement the session, okay, with the range of functions, including transferring sessions, call forwarding, modifying the session parameters, all these things it will do. So you can see here, this is how we are doing the establishing communication through SIP proxies. So this is how we are doing. If you want to make a call like this, so this is how it works. So all these user capability, user availability, which machine he uses, all those information it takes and then establishes the initiate the session initiation protocol. So that is explained here. So invite, trying, and then okay, acknowledgement. So all these things. So they basically these requires TCP as an underlying protocol. Come to H.323. So this is International Telecommunication Union protocol, very active in the call control area, which is not surprising given its relevance to telephony. Fortunately, there has been considerable coordination between the IETF and ITU. Okay, so mainly you have to write H.323 from this slide. You have to take that. This is the ITU standard. Okay, ITU standard. H.323. Actually, you can see here, it takes care of the device. H.323, it takes care of the device. So from this device has to connect means from what gateway to which terminal, who is the gatekeeper, okay? Devices connection in an H.323. Devices connection in the multimedia application is taken care by H.323. So resource allocation for multimedia application. Session control protocol like SIP and H.323 can be used to initiate and control communication in multimedia applications, while RTP provides transport level functions for the data stream of the applications. The final piece of the puzzle in getting multimedia application to work is making sure that suitable resources are allocated inside the network to ensure the quality of service needs of the applications are met. So for this, we are going for differentiated surveys, right? We have already discussed the differentiated surveys and integrated surveys. Differentiated surveys and integrated surveys are the fields in the IP protocol. Just recall that. Differentiated surveys can be used to provide fairly basic and scalable resource allocation to applications. A multimedia application can set differentiated service code point in the IP header of the packets that generates its an effort to ensure that both media and control packet receive appropriate quality of service. Okay. Differentiated service. So for in a differentiated service applied to voice over internet protocol application. So differentiated service queuing is applied only on the upstream link from customer router to ISP. So only for differentiated service is applied only for particular flow here from IP phone through the customer router to this ISP router. So only for this differentiated services care is taken, whatever the resource required for this IP phone through this customer router to the ISP router is taken care only on the upstream link. So that is differentiated scheme. Okay. Resource allocation for multimedia application. So resource allocation is challenging. So once you are full with the your resources are completely allocated means you cannot allow next request because resources are not available. That we call it as admission control. Okay, admission control using session control protocol. So suppose here IP phones are there 1, 2, 3, 4 and resources are enough and all resources are allocated. Next IP phone comes and wants to make the communication, its request is denied. That is admission control because enough resources are not available. That is done in order to meet the quality of service. Resource allocation for multimedia applications. So this is a coordination of SIP, signaling and resource reservation protocol. Invite session description protocol 1. So far whatever we have discussed, all those informations are summarized here. So you note down this particular slide number 55. How suppose if the question is asked to explain how resource allocations are made, then you have to write RSVP, you have to write admission control, you have to write, and this diagram you have to write. So next, is infrastructure services. There are some protocols that are essential to the smooth running of the internet, but don't fit neatly into the strict layered model. One of these is the domain name system, DNS, not an application that users normally invoke explicitly, but rather a service that almost all other applications depend upon. Whenever you want to use some website, then we write its name. Obviously, we by default, indirectly or indirectly, we are invoking the domain name system, which gets the IP address. So every application uses this. Name service it will do. So DNS. So you know this DNS. So the DNS, how it works, we discussed already. On our so DNS, I will not be discussing again. So you can think of DNS name translation into addresses where the numbers that is explained here. You can take the domain name and show how it converts. Domain hierarchy. DNS implements hierarchical namespace for internet objects, unlike Unix file names, which are processed from left to right with the naming components. So you write DNS implements hierarchical namespace for internet objects. That is enough. So DNS hierarchy can be visualized as a tree structure. So these 2 points you have to explain, and this like in Unix, these types of things you have studied. This is example of a domain hierarchy. So education, .com, government, military, organization, net, UK, FR, all these things. So domain name hierarchy, it is easy. You can go through this. Name servers. The complete domain name hierarchy exists only in the abstract. We now turn our attention to the question of how this hierarchy is actually implemented. The first step is to partition the hierarchy into subtrees called zones. We now partition the hierarchy into subtrees called zones. Each zone can be thought of as corresponding to some administrative authority that is responsible for that portion of the hierarchy. So you know that, so this top level of the hierarchy forms a zone that is managed by Internet Corporation for assigned names and numbers. Numbers means IP numbers, names means domain names. So this is managed by ICANN. So if you register the domain name of the TCS or Honeywell, so you will be asked to give it back. So that story and all you can read later. So different good stories are available. How name resolution happens? So how domain name server makes the resolutions is explained in this diagram. Okay, different servers, different machines, access the domain name server. It resolves. So if you give the name, it gives the corresponding IP address. So next is network management. So a network is a complex system, both in terms of the number of nodes that are involved in terms of the suite of protocols that can be running on any one node. Even if you restrict yourself to worrying about the nodes within a single administrative domain, such as the campus, there might be dozens of routers and hundreds or even thousands of hosts to keep track of. So it's a very complex one, but you have to manage the network, right? To manage the network, the protocol used is Simple Network Management Protocol. SNMP is essentially specialized request replay protocol that supports 2 kinds of request messages, get and set. The former is used to retrieve a piece of state from some node, and the latter is used to store a new piece of state in some node. Okay, what is SNMP? How it is used and is explained here. SNMP is used in the obvious ways. So you will be asked to write a simple short note on SNMP. A system administrator interacts with the client program that displays information about the network. This client program usually has a graphical interface. Whenever the administrator selects a certain piece of information that he or she wants to see, the client program uses SNMP to request that information from the node in question. SNMP runs on top of UDP. This is very important. An SNMP server running on that node receives the request, locates the appropriate piece of information, and returns to the client program, which then displays it to the user. So this is with respect to simple. So not in depth is required as per your syllabus. We cannot go in depth. Like a network itself is complex. SNMP itself is a complex. SNMP version 1, version 2, ARM, remote monitoring network protocol. Many things are there. So all those things are not required. SNMP is a simple network management protocol. It is essentially specialized request reply protocol. It uses two request messages, get and set. And SNMP, how it works is explained here. So that much is enough. And in the next class, we'll discuss overlay networks and remaining topics. Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in the next class, we'll discuss the remaining topics. Fine. So please go through these things. These are very basics, but at the same time, you should not neglect. Please answer your attendance. So Anaga,
Yes, sir.
Abhilash,
Yes, sir.
Akhil, Akrut Kumar,
Sir.
Akshay,
2% in charging.
Anusha absent.
Present, sir.
Arvind,
Present, sir.
Arifullah,
Yes, sir.
Benakaraj,
Present, sir.
Panu Prakash,
Yes, sir.
Bhargav,
Sir.
Rahmatullah,
Present, sir.
Chaitra,
Present, sir.
Chandana absent. Charan Kumar, Darshan,
Present, sir.
Diksha,
Yes, sir.
Dakshayani,
Present, sir.
Kishan,
Present, sir. Present, sir.
okay. Harshit,
Present, sir.
Hemalata, Huma Bushra, Jayant,
Present, sir.
Divya,
Yes, sir.
Kaushik,
Present, sir.
Lakshmi,
Present, sir.
Lavanya,
Present, sir.
Manish,
Present, sir.
Manoj,
Sir.
Mohit, Naval,
Present, sir.
Navya,
Present, sir.
Nikhil, absent. Panindra,
Present, sir.
Pavan,
Present, sir.
Pooja,
Present, sir.
Purnima,
Present, sir.
Raman, Rashmi,
Yes, sir. Sir,
Rupak Datta,
Yes, sir.
Sai Kumar,
Yes, sir.
Samir,
Present, sir.
Shadab Ansari,
Present, sir.
Sharan, Shashank,
Yes, sir.
Shivani, Shivani, Somyasri,
Present, sir.
Spurti, Sri Vishnu,
Present, sir.
Shubandini,
Present, sir.
Sushma,
Present, sir.
Sushmita,
Present, sir.
Sushmita U,
Present, sir.
Neerta KB,
Present, sir.
Tuttiyam,
Present, sir.
Varsha,
Present, sir.
Veena, Veena, Sheetal, Sheetal absent, Santosh.
Yeah, present, sir.
For the test on Saturday, client server program, everybody has to write and execute along with the part B program, any one part B program in the network. So, as per your selection, you'll get the program in part B. Study well, all the best for your second lab internal test.
Sir, Raman present, sir.
I've given.
Sir, there is slight request for the last module. Please guide us which are the major topics to read, where there is lot to, sir, there in the last module.
Correct. That's what throughout the discussion I am telling you some of the questions. No, all the points you cannot write RFC and IET of many for one single protocol. Many discussions will be there. All those points you are not required. That's what is required. I am just explaining. Okay, so for example, real-time streaming protocol RTP based, it is used for multimedia applications for streaming, and underlying protocol is TCP. Okay, and multimedia application, for multimedia application, the application program and application protocol both you can write, and mainly used for controlling the jitter and smoothing of the packet transmission, because when you want to play the packet should be available in the buffer. So these information in general, if you write enough, it is not possible to remember all the points and write in the examination, because the syllabus is too much, right? So that definitely it will be in the minds of the paper setter and in the evaluation also. And if you are keep elaborating every protocol available in the applications, that itself becomes one semester. So that much of information is not required. Only key points, whatever I am telling. So in the textbook, it is elaborated and given. The same thing is given here for your reference. But only points, whatever I am explaining, that is sufficient.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that I got, sir. But just I was asking, sir, for request for to give us some certain, sir, like questions or topics which we have to focus more
That I
regarding.
will give. So, Raman, what I am planning is that the last module, chapter 8 and 9, we can discuss what are the important questions, what should be your focus. Okay, with respect to that, some activities, some we can conduct. From Monday onwards, you have time, right?
Yes, sir.
We can discuss that, definitely. Better we can have one-to-one interaction, and you can ask what is the protocol that you have to focus. For example, when given some topic, what you should write, all those things I can explain.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.